The market of New Dawn Colony was calm that morning. The sky above the human settlement was pale blue, and two small moons could still be seen fading in the light. Humans and aliens walked side by side between metal stalls and bright fabric tents. The colony stood on neutral ground, a place where different species traded goods and tried to live in peace. At least, that was what the Galactic Council promised. Children laughed near a fountain made of silver stone. Among them was a small human boy named Aaron. He was only 7 years old. He had dark hair, curious eyes, and a small wooden toy ship in his hand. He ran between the stalls, pretending his ship was flying through space. His mother watched him from a fruit stand, smiling softly. She felt safe here. Everyone was told this colony was protected by law. Then the sound of heavy boots echoed across the market floor. Conversation slowed. A tall alien officer walked into the square with 2 patrol soldiers behind her. Her armor was dark blue and silver. A long energy baton rested at her side. Her name was Officer Kareth of the Zarn Dominion. She was known for strict rule and cold discipline. She did not like humans. She believed they were loud, emotional, and weak. The crowd moved aside as she passed. Aliens bowed their heads slightly. Humans lowered their eyes. Officer Kareth stopped near the fountain and scanned the area with sharp yellow eyes. "Inspection," she said in a flat voice. Her soldiers began checking trade permits. The market grew silent except for the sound of boots and metal armor. Aaron did not understand tension. He was flying his toy ship through the air, making quiet engine sound with his mouth. He ran backward without looking. In one careless step, he bumped into Officer Kareth's leg. The wooden toy ship fell and hit her armored boot. The crowd froze. Aaron looked up slowly. The officer looked down at him with no expression. For a second, no one moved. The boy quickly picked up his toy ship. "Sorry," he said in small, simple words. His voice shook a little. Officer Kareth stared at him as if he were dirt on her armor. "Watch where you move, human," she said. Aaron nodded and turned to leave. But the officer was not satisfied. Maybe she was angry from a long day. Maybe she wanted to show power. Maybe she simply hated humans. No one knew. She grabbed the boy's shoulder roughly. The wooden ship fell again. The mother gasped. "Please," she whispered, stepping forward. "He is only a child." Officer Kareth's grip tightened. "Human children must learn respect early," she said coldly. Then, in one sudden motion, she struck him across the face with the back of her armored hand. The sound was sharp and loud in the silent square. Aaron's small body fell to the stone ground. His toy ship rolled into the fountain water. For a moment, the entire market stopped breathing. The mother screamed and rushed forward, falling beside her son. Blood touched the corner of his lip. His eyes were closed. Humans stood frozen. Some aliens looked uncomfortable. Others looked away. A few even smiled quietly. Officer Kareth stepped back, as if nothing important had happened. "Control your offspring," she said. "Next time, the punishment will be greater." That was when a man stepped out from the crowd. He had been standing near a tool shop the whole time. He wore simple worker clothes. His hands were rough from labor. His face showed no emotion. This was Aaron's father. He walked slowly to his wife and knelt beside her. He checked his son's breathing. The boy was alive, but unconscious. The father lifted him gently into his arms. He looked up at Officer Kareth. His eyes were calm, but something deep and cold lived behind them. He did not shout. He did not threaten. He only said one sentence. "You touched the wrong child." Officer Kareth almost laughed. "Humans," she said quietly to her soldiers. "Always dramatic." She turned and walked away. Her boots echoed again across the market stone. The patrol followed her. No one stopped them. No one spoke. The father carried his son toward the medical station. The mother walked beside him, crying softly. But something had changed in the air. It felt heavy. Watching humans helped them silently. No anger. No protest. Just silence. That silence was more frightening than any scream. Hours later, inside the medical center, doctors worked quickly. The boy had a fractured cheekbone and internal injury. He was stable but weak. The father stood beside the bed without moving. His wife held his hand tightly. "It was an accident," she whispered through tears. Maybe we should report it to the council. The father did not answer. He looked at his son's small hand resting on the white sheet. Then he stepped outside the room. In the hallway, he pulled out a small communicator device. His hand did not shake. He pressed one coded sequence. The signal traveled far beyond the colony, beyond the planet, beyond the sector. It reached Earth. In a dark command room deep under the surface of the human homeworld, a red light began to blink. An officer looked at the screen and went still. The message contained only 6 words. Harm to civilian. Child injured. Confirmed. The room became silent. Then another officer whispered, "Activate review protocol." Far above New Dawn Colony, hidden beyond normal radar range, a human stealth ship powered its engines quietly. No announcement was made. No warning was given. Back in the colony, Officer Kareth filed her report. She wrote that a human miner interfered with an inspection and received disciplinary correction. She felt satisfied. She believed the matter was finished. That night, as she looked out from her quarters toward the stars, she noticed something strange. A single point of light in orbit had appeared where there was nothing before. It did not move like a normal ship. It remained still, watching. She narrowed her eyes. Probably trade traffic, she muttered. But deep in space, more lights began to appear. And on Earth, leaders gathered in silence. No speeches were made. No anger was shown. Only one quiet order was spoken in the underground chamber. Prepare response. The father returned to his son's bedside and sat down. He held the boy's small hand and watched the machines breathe for him. His face remained calm, but across the stars, something had already begun to move. And the galaxy had no idea what had just awakened. The news did not spread through shouting. It did not fill the human networks with anger or loud messages. It moved quietly, like a shadow passing from one wall to another. In New Dawn Colony, the market reopened the next morning as if nothing had happened. Stalls stood in the same places. Traders spoke in low voices. Aliens acted normal. But the humans were different. They were too calm, too controlled. Aaron remained in the medical center, still weak but alive. Machines hummed softly around his bed. His mother had not slept. She sat beside him, holding his hand. His father stood near the window, looking at the sky. He had not left the room since sending the coded message. He had not cried. He had not shouted. He simply waited. On Earth, deep below the surface, the high defense chamber was active. Large screens showed the colony, the alien officer's file, and the patrol report. Military leaders stood around a round metal table. No one argued. No one panicked. A gray-haired admiral finally spoke. "The child lives," he said. "Yes," another officer replied. But the message was clear. A third voice added quietly, "The galaxy is watching how we respond." The room went silent again. Then a single phrase was spoken. "Protocol Black Seed." No alarm sounded. No fleets rushed forward in dramatic display. Instead, encrypted signals left Earth in every direction. Hidden relays woke up. Old allies received coded updates. Deep space listening posts turned their attention toward Zarn Dominion space. Far from Earth, on a harsh world covered in storms and sharp mountains, the Deathworlder clans received the same message. They were humans who lived in the hardest conditions. They trained harder. They fought smarter. They survived where others could not. When their leader saw the message, he did not smile. He only nodded once. "Confirmed," he said. "Prepare silent mobilization." Back on New Dawn Colony, Officer Kareth walked proudly through the command center. Some younger officers looked at her with respect, others with quiet doubt. One of her soldiers finally asked, "Ma'am, the humans, they filed no protest?" Kareth gave a small, cold smile. "Humans are weak in politics," she replied. "They bark. They do not bite." The soldier nodded, but unease stayed in his eyes. In orbit above the colony, the strange human ship remained still. It did not answer hails. It did not identify itself. Long-range scans showed no weapons powered, no shields active. It simply waited. Zarn Dominion Command dismissed it as surveillance. "They want to look strong," a commander said through secure channel. "Let them watch." But they did not see what hid beyond their scanners. Small stealth drones had already entered the system. They moved without heat signatures. They mapped defense grids. They counted patrol routes. They studied response times. On Earth, analysts gathered data calmly. Every detail of Officer Karith's service record was reviewed. She had a history of harsh discipline. She had once broken a civilian trader's arm during inspection. The council had praised her efficiency. Efficiency. The word felt heavy in the human chamber. Aaron finally opened his eyes late that evening. His mother cried with relief. The father stepped closer, but said nothing. The boy's voice was weak. "Dad," he whispered. The father leaned down. "I am here." Aaron blinked slowly. "Did I do something wrong?" The father's jaw tightened slightly. "No," he said. "You did nothing wrong." Those words traveled deeper than the boy understood. Outside the medical center, two human civilians stood quietly near the entrance. They were not ordinary civilians. Their posture was too straight. Their eyes watched every movement. They spoke softly into hidden communicators. The colony governor, a human appointed by joint treaty, requested a meeting with Zarn Dominion officials. The response was delayed. Hours passed without answer. That delay was noted. In the Galactic Council capital, far across the sector, minor discussion began. A small report mentioned an incident involving human minor. Most council members ignored it. Humans were considered emotional but contained. They had strong military, yes, but they preferred trade and stability. "It will pass," one counselor said. "It always does." What they did not know was that Earth had not issued a public statement. No demand, no protest, no anger, just silence. And in galactic politics, silence from a Deathworld species was rarely a good sign. Late at night, Officer Karith sat in her quarters again. She replayed the incident recording. She watched the moment her hand struck the child. She felt no regret, only irritation that humans were so fragile. But something disturbed her. She rewound the image to the father's face. Calm. No rage. No fear. Just stillness. She paused the video. For a brief second, she felt something she did not like. Uncertainty. She turned the recording off. In deep space, 3 more human ships exited fold travel far beyond sensor range. They powered down most systems and drifted like dark stones. They waited for further command. On Earth, the final vote was cast inside the high defense chamber. It was unanimous. A senior diplomat asked one final question. "Are we certain?" The admiral answered, "A message must be clear." Another officer added, "Not to start a war." The admiral nodded slowly. "No, to prevent the next one." A secure transmission was prepared, but not yet sent. It was addressed to the Galactic Council. Its content was short. Its tone was formal. It contained a request for emergency session attendance. Back in the hospital room, the father stood once more by the window. In the night sky above New Dawn Colony, more faint lights had appeared. They were too high for normal ships, too still for satellites. The father's communicator vibrated once. A single message appeared. Response approved. Timeline initiated. He closed his eyes for 1 second. Not in anger, not in grief, but in acceptance. When he opened them again, they were steady. Beside him, his son slept peacefully, unaware of the quiet storm forming beyond the stars. And across the galaxy, systems continued their normal routines. Trade moved. Governments debated. Fleets patrolled. None of them understood that humanity had already made its decision. And when humans made a decision in silence, history often changed without warning. In the days that followed, nothing exploded. No fleets attacked. No angry human broadcasts filled the galactic networks. That silence began to disturb more people than any threat could. On New Dawn Colony, humans moved through their routines with careful calm. Shops opened on time. Workers reported to duty. Children walked to learning centers. But there was a change in their eyes. They watched more. They spoke less. Officer Karith noticed it during her patrol rounds. Conversations stopped when she entered a room. Human workers stepped aside without protest, yet their faces held something unreadable. It was not fear. It was not anger. It was patience. That patience unsettled her more than open hatred would have. Reports from nearby systems began to reach Zarn Dominion Command. A small military outpost on the edge of their territory had gone silent for 6 minutes before restoring contact. When communication returned, the officers there claimed it was a sensor glitch. But security footage later showed something else. For exactly 6 minutes, every external camera had gone dark at the same time. No alarms triggered. No damage detected. Just darkness. In another sector, a Zarn supply convoy reported interference. Navigation systems shifted slightly off course before correcting. Engineers blamed solar radiation. Still, the pattern was recorded. Small errors. Small interruptions. Nothing dramatic. Yet they formed a quiet line connecting back toward human space. In the Galactic Council capital, whispers grew louder. Some older council members remembered stories from decades ago. They remembered the first expansion conflict, when pirates had attacked a human transport ship carrying families. At that time, humans had responded with calm diplomacy. Then, weeks later, the pirate base had simply vanished. No survivors. No official claim. Only a short message left in open space. Civilian protection enforced. Those who remembered that event began to worry. In her office, Officer Kareth received a summons to provide a formal statement regarding the market incident. She entered the communication chamber and stood straight before the holographic image of her superior commander. "Your disciplinary action has drawn attention," the commander said. "Human representatives have requested a review." Kareth lifted her chin. "The human miner interfered with an active inspection," she replied. Force was minimal. The commander studied her for a long moment. "And yet," he said slowly, "human fleet movements have increased." Kareth felt a small pulse of irritation. "They are posturing," she insisted. "Humans enjoy dramatic displays." The commander did not look convinced. "Remain alert," he said before ending the call. That same evening, the silent human ship in orbit adjusted its position slightly. It moved just enough to be noticed. Zarn defense scanners tracked it carefully. A patrol cruiser was sent to approach and demand identification. The human vessel responded with a simple automated message. "This craft operates under civilian protection oversight. No hostile intent." The Zarn cruiser circled it but detected no active weapons. Frustrated, they returned to standard patrol. What they did not know was that beneath the cruiser's hull, a device no larger than a hand had attached itself during the approach. It remained inactive, waiting. On Earth, the High Defense Chamber reviewed new data. The father's original message had been upgraded. The boy was recovering, but psychological impact remained uncertain. Analysts displayed probability models on large screens. "Direct war likelihood?" one official asked. "Low," answered a strategist. "Targeted demonstration?" "High effectiveness," came the reply. The room felt heavy again. The admiral folded his hands behind his back. "We will not strike blindly," he said. "The galaxy must understand why." Far from political centers, in a training facility carved into the mountains of a storm-covered death world, elite human operatives prepared in silence. Their armor was dark and unmarked. Their insignia showed no national symbol, only a small silver emblem shaped like a shield. They studied holographic maps of Zarn space. Entry points, patrol patterns, extraction routes. One operative asked, "Objective confirmation?" The commander answered calmly, "Apprehension. Public accountability. Message delivery." No cheers followed, only nods. Back on New Dawn Colony, Aaron was strong enough to sit up in bed. His cheek was healing. He spoke softly with his mother about returning home. The father listened, smiling gently for the first time since the incident. But when he stepped into the hallway, two quiet figures met him. They wore civilian clothes, yet their posture was unmistakably military. One of them spoke respectfully. "Sir, we need your formal testimony." The father nodded. "Will it change anything?" he asked. The second figure held his gaze. "Yes," she answered. "It already has." Across Zarn territory, a border surveillance station suddenly lost power completely. Unlike earlier glitches, this outage lasted longer. Emergency backups failed to activate. When technicians finally restored systems, they found a single message burned into the primary display screen. It contained only 3 words. For the child. Panic spread through lower command levels. Was this hacking? Sabotage? A prelude to invasion? Officers requested permission to raise alert status. High Command hesitated. To escalate publicly would admit vulnerability. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council capital, human diplomats submitted a formal request for emergency assembly. The wording was calm and respectful. It cited violation of interspecies civilian protection law. It requested attendance of all major representatives. The council scheduled the session reluctantly. They expected debate, perhaps sanctions. They did not expect anything more. Officer Kareth received notice that she might be required to appear for testimony. Anger rose in her chest. She had followed procedure. She had maintained authority. Why was this becoming political? That night, she reviewed the recording once more. Again, she saw the father's face. Calm, still, watching. For the first time, she wondered what message had traveled from that simple communicator device in his hand. In orbit, the human ship powered down visible lights. Farther out, shapes moved in darkness, too distant for normal scans to register. And across the galaxy, rumors continued to grow. Humans were not shouting. They were not threatening. They were organizing. And history had shown that when Deathworlders organized in silence, the storm that followed was never small. The first official alarm did not come from New Dawn Colony. It came from deep inside Zarn Dominion space. A long-range defense platform near the outer border suddenly stopped responding to command signals. At first, technicians believed it was a system failure. The station was old. Its reactors had shown minor problems before. But when a nearby patrol ship arrived to inspect, they found something impossible. The platform was intact. No explosion. No visible damage. Yet every weapon system had been shut down with perfect precision. Control circuits were cut cleanly, as if someone had reached inside the machine and turned its heart off by hand. The patrol captain ordered a full scan of the area. Nothing appeared on radar. No ships. No debris. Just empty space. Then one of the engineers called out from the control room. "Captain, there's a message." On the main display screen, written in clear, translated text, were 3 simple words. For the child. Silence filled the bridge. The captain felt his throat tighten. This was no accident. Back on New Dawn Colony, Officer Kareth was informed of the border platform incident. She stood in the security office, staring at the holographic report. "A coincidence," she said quickly. "Cyber interference. Humans are skilled in digital warfare." But her voice was not as strong as before. Her subordinate shifted uneasily. "Ma'am, 3 more stations have reported similar shutdowns." Kareth turned sharply. "Destroyed." "No," the officer answered. "Disabled." Cleanly. That word again. Cleanly. No chaos. No random violence. Just controlled removal of power. Somewhere far from Zarn's sensors, a small human strike vessel drifted silently. Its hull absorbed light. Its engines ran at minimal output. Inside, a team of Deathworlder operatives studied incoming data. One of them spoke quietly. Phase 1 complete. Defensive grid weakened by 14%. The commander nodded. Continue pattern. Avoid civilian targets. There was no excitement in their voices. Only focus. On Earth, the High Defense Chamber received confirmation of the first successful operations. Screens showed red markers slowly fading from Zarn defense maps. The Admiral folded his arms. Response from Zarn leadership? Confusion. An intelligence officer replied. They suspect internal sabotage. The Admiral allowed himself a small breath. Good. Let them look inward. Meanwhile, in the Galactic Council capital, whispers turned into open concern. Several member species had noticed unusual fleet movements near Zarn space. Human ships were not advancing aggressively, but they were positioning themselves with careful strategy. Trade routes were being avoided. Civilian corridors left untouched. It was not invasion. It was preparation. Officer Kareth returned to her quarters later that night. She removed her armor slowly, her thoughts heavy. A notification blinked on her console. Emergency Council Assembly confirmed. Attendance mandatory. Her jaw tightened. She would be questioned, judged, possibly blamed. She replayed the market recording once more. The child falling. The mother screaming. The father watching. She muted the audio this time. Without sound, the image felt colder. More final. A new alert suddenly flashed across her screen. Unauthorized vessel detected in upper orbit. Kareth moved quickly to the command deck. Large viewports showed the blackness of space. There, faint but visible, were multiple small distortions in starlight. Ships decloaking. Zarn defense cannons attempted to lock on, but targeting systems glitched. Guidance software lagged. A communications channel opened automatically across all frequencies. A calm human voice filled the room. This is a limited enforcement action. Remain in defensive posture. Civilian structures will not be harmed. Kareth felt anger rise again. They dare threaten us? She demanded. But even as she spoke, another report arrived. The patrol cruiser that had earlier approached the silent human ship was losing power. Systems were shutting down one by one. The small device attached beneath its hull had activated. Engineers scrambled to restore control, but nothing responded. The cruiser drifted helplessly in orbit. Panic began to spread among lower-ranked officers. Some demanded immediate retaliation. Others urged caution. High Command hesitated. Every attempt to target the new human vessels failed. It was as if the Deathworlders were always one step ahead. On the surface of New Dawn Colony, civilians watched strange lights move across the night sky. Human families remained indoors. Alien residents gathered in nervous clusters. Rumors flew faster than facts. The colony governor received a direct message from Earth. Stand clear. Do not interfere. This action is contained. The governor read the words twice. Contained. That word carried weight. Inside the medical center, Aaron slept peacefully. His father stood by the window again, looking at the sky filled with distant moving lights. He knew what those lights meant. A quiet knock came at the door. One of the civilian-clothed operatives entered. Sir, she said softly. Phase 2 has begun. The father nodded once. No civilians? He asked. None, she confirmed. He closed his eyes briefly. Not in relief, but in understanding. Back in orbit, a Zarn command ship attempted to flee toward a nearby jump point. Before it could engage its engines fully, space in front of it seemed to bend. A human vessel emerged directly in its path. Weapons powered, but did not fire. Instead, a focused energy pulse struck the Zarn ship's engine core, disabling it instantly without explosion. Another clean shutdown. Another message transmitted directly to the disabled crew. For the child. Officer Kareth gripped the edge of the command console. Fear finally touched her heart. This was not random anger. This was controlled demonstration. The humans were not attacking everything. They were removing protection, stripping defense, making a path. But a path to what? A senior Zarn general appeared on the main holographic display. His voice was tight with controlled urgency. Officer Kareth, your presence is required at Dominion Central immediately. You will be transported under guard. She stiffened. Am I under arrest? The general paused. You are under protection. The difference between those words felt very small. Outside, human ships continued their silent work. Defense grids weakened. Patrol routes disrupted. Communications intercepted. Yet no civilian districts burned. No random destruction occurred. It was a message written in precision. Across the galaxy, observers began to understand. This was not war. Not yet. It was a hunt. And at the center of that hunt stood one alien officer who had believed a single strike against a child would carry no consequence. As the transport shuttle arrived to carry Officer Kareth away, she looked once more at the dark sky filled with silent human vessels. For the first time, she truly wondered if the father's calm words had been a promise, not a warning. And deep in space, the Deathworlder commander received updated coordinates. Phase 2 complete. Target movement confirmed. Phase 3 ready. Zarn Dominion Central was no longer calm. Military ships filled the space around the capital world. Defense cannons rotated slowly, searching for enemies that did not appear on scanners. Officers ran through command halls with tense faces. Reports came every minute. Another border grid offline. Another patrol group disabled. No explosions. No destroyed cities. Just systems going dark one by one. The feeling inside Dominion Central was worse than open war. It felt like being watched by something patient and precise. Officer Kareth's transport shuttle entered the Capitol's shield perimeter under heavy guard. She sat in silence, armor polished, posture straight. Two elite soldiers stood behind her. No one spoke during the journey. She kept telling herself this was political theater. The humans wanted fear. They wanted attention. But deep inside, doubt was growing. When the shuttle landed, she was escorted directly to a secure military chamber. High-ranking commanders waited around a long black table. Their faces were hard, but tension showed in their eyes. A holographic projection of several Galactic Council observers flickered above the center of the table. One commander spoke first. "Officer Kareth, your disciplinary action has triggered a significant human response." She lifted her chin. "With respect, sir, the response is disproportionate." Another commander activated a display. It showed disabled defense stations, drifting patrol ships, and frozen weapon grids. "They have not attacked civilians," he said slowly. "They have not declared war. They're dismantling our outer protection." Kareth remained silent. The room felt colder. A council representative's image leaned forward. "The humans have formally requested emergency assembly. They claim violation of interspecies civilian protection law." Kareth's jaw tightened. The child was interfering. He was 7. The representative replied quietly. Silence fell again. Meanwhile, far from the capital, in a shadowed region between star systems, a human strike vessel prepared for the next phase. Inside the dim command room, holographic images of Zarn military routes glowed blue in the darkness. The Deathworlder commander studied one flashing icon. "Target confirmed en route to Dominion Central," an operative reported. The commander nodded. "No civilian casualties. Extract only." On New Dawn Colony, Aaron was finally allowed to return home. His face was still bruised, but he could walk slowly on his own. Neighbors greeted the family gently. No one spoke loudly. No one mentioned revenge. But many eyes followed the father with quiet respect. That evening, the father received another secure message. Phase 3 in progress. He stared at the words for a long moment before locking the device. His son tugged at his hand. "Dad, are the stars fighting?" the boy asked softly, looking at strange lights moving in the sky. The father knelt down. "No," he said calmly. "The stars are learning." High above Dominion Central, a sudden distortion appeared in space. Zarn sensors detected it too late. A sleek human vessel exited fold travel directly behind a military escort ship. Before alarms could fully sound, a focused electromagnetic pulse struck the escort's engines. The large ship drifted powerless. Smaller fighters scrambled, but their targeting systems glitched at the same moment. From the human vessel, a calm voice transmitted across secure Zarn channels. "We request custody of Officer Kareth under civilian protection claim." Shock spread through the Capital Command. "Denied," one Zarn general shouted. Defense cannons attempted to fire, but half of them failed to respond. Human drones, already hidden in orbit for days, activated simultaneously, disrupting power relays. The attack was not chaotic. It was exact. Inside the secure chamber, alarms finally echoed. An officer rushed in. "Human vessel in high orbit. They are targeting command transport lanes." Kareth felt the ground shift slightly as distant power conduits overloaded. The commander looked at her with something close to frustration. "You see what this has become?" he asked. Before she could answer, the chamber lights flickered. For 3 seconds, the entire building lost power. When the emergency lights returned, a new signal filled every display screen in the room. A single line of text appeared in perfect Zarn translation. "For the child." At that exact moment, deep in orbit, the human strike team launched. Small armored pods shot from their vessel, cutting through the atmosphere at controlled speed. Zarn anti-air batteries attempted to intercept, but targeting errors caused near misses. The pods landed with heavy force on a secured landing platform attached to Dominion Central's upper structure. Smoke cleared. Dark armored figures stepped out. They moved with discipline and silence. No wild shooting. No shouting. Their weapons were precise pulse rifles set to disable. Inside the command chamber, security teams rushed to defend the building. Gunfire echoed through metal corridors. Human operatives advanced carefully, using stun pulses and controlled shots to neutralize guards without lethal force where possible. They were not there for massacre. They were there for one person. Kareth stood frozen as explosions echoed closer. Her commanders looked torn between rage and fear. One of them activated a personal sidearm and handed it to her. "Defend yourself," he said. She took the weapon, but her hand felt heavier than usual. Footsteps thundered in the hallway outside. Then the main chamber doors burst inward under controlled detonation. Smoke rolled across the floor. Through it stepped 3 tall human figures in black armor, faces hidden behind reflective visors. Their leader spoke in calm, clear basic. "Officer Kareth of the Zarn Dominion, you are required to stand down." Zarn soldiers opened fire. The humans responded with stunning precision. Within seconds, the chamber was quiet except for crackling sparks and groans from disabled guards. One human operative aimed directly at Kareth. She raised her weapon, but something stopped her. She saw again the image of the boy falling, the father watching. Her finger hesitated. That hesitation was enough. A pulse shot struck her weapon, knocking it from her hand. Another shot hit her armor, sending controlled shock through her body. She collapsed to her knees, conscious but unable to move. The human leader stepped forward. "You will be transported," he said calmly. "Your treatment will match the law you ignored." Zarn commanders shouted protests, but more human operatives secured the room. Within minutes, Kareth was lifted and restrained. No unnecessary harm. No chaos. Just efficiency. As they escorted her toward the extraction pod, alarms continued to echo through Dominion Central. Outside, human ships held position, weapons powered but restrained. This was not destruction. It was capture. As the extraction pod launched back toward orbit, Kareth looked down at her capital city growing smaller beneath her. For the first time since the market incident, she truly understood. This was never about anger. It was about message. And the message was not finished yet. The human extraction pod broke through the upper atmosphere of Dominion Central with controlled speed. Zarn fighters tried to pursue, but their targeting systems were still unstable. Several ships powered down without warning, drifting helplessly in orbit. The human strike vessel opened its bay doors for only a few seconds. The pod entered. The doors closed. Then the ship vanished in a fold space before Zarn Command could recover. Inside the dim holding chamber of the human vessel, Officer Kareth slowly regained full control of her body. Energy restraints held her arms in place, but they were not painful. They were precise. Across from her stood the Deathworlder commander. His armor was dark, unmarked. His voice was calm when he spoke. "You are safe," he said. "You will not be harmed without cause." Kareth forced herself to sit upright. "You invaded sovereign territory," she replied coldly. "You disabled military defenses." The commander did not react. "We removed weapons that protect those who harm children," he answered. Silence followed. The ship jumped again, traveling far beyond immediate Zarn tracking range. In the Galactic Council capital, emergency alarms echoed through the Grand Chamber. Representatives from dozens of species gathered in confusion. Reports flooded in about disabled Zarn stations and the capture of an officer. The council speaker demanded clarification from the human ambassador, who stood calmly near the center platform. "Is this an act of war?" one counselor demanded. The human ambassador shook his head slowly. "No," he said. "This is an act of enforcement." Murmurs spread across the chamber. "Enforcement of what?" another representative asked. The ambassador activated a holographic recording. It showed the New Dawn market, the small boy running, the collision, the strike, the child falling, the mother screaming, the father watching. The chamber fell silent as the recording ended. "This," the ambassador said quietly, "is a violation of interspecies civilian protection law signed by every member here." Several council members avoided eye contact. Some whispered to aides. The Zarn representative rose in anger. Discipline was necessary, he argued. The human miner interfered with official inspection. The ambassador's expression did not change. He was 7, he replied, and unarmed. Back aboard the human vessel, Kareth was shown the same recording. This time it was slowed, each frame clear, each detail sharp. She watched herself raise her armored hand. She watched the impact. She saw the boy's small body hit stone. For the first time, she noticed the fear in the mother's face. She had not seen it that day. Or perhaps she had not cared. You had options, the Deathworlder commander said. You chose force. Kareth's jaw tightened. I maintained order. The commander stepped closer. Order without restraint becomes cruelty. His tone was not loud. It did not need to be. On Earth, the high defense chamber received confirmation of successful extraction. Phase 3 complete. The admiral looked at his advisors. Prepare Phase 4, he ordered. Public session. In orbit around the Galactic Council capital, multiple human ships exited fold travel openly this time. They did not hide. They did not cloak. They positioned themselves in visible formation beyond the station's defense perimeter. Their weapons remained powered, but not locked. The message was clear. They were not there to attack. They were there to witness. Inside the council chamber, tension grew heavier by the minute. The human ambassador spoke again. We have not destroyed cities. We have not harmed civilians. We have disabled military assets only where necessary to secure accountability. He paused, letting his words settle. Officer Kareth will stand before this council. Shock rippled across the chamber. The Zarn representative protested immediately. You cannot demand extradition. The ambassador met his gaze. We do not demand, he said. We present. At that moment, a secure transmission request appeared in the council system. The source was a human vessel in orbit. Permission was granted reluctantly. A holographic projection formed in the center of the chamber. Officer Kareth appeared, restrained but unharmed. Gasps filled the room. The council speaker leaned forward. Officer Kareth, he said carefully, are you being mistreated? She hesitated. Pride battled reality in her mind. No, she answered finally. They have not harmed me. The human ambassador nodded slightly. You will testify, he said calmly. Not under torture, not under threat, under law. Across the chamber, some representatives began reviewing the original Civilian Protection Treaty. The wording was clear. No signatory species may use disproportionate force against non-combatant minors. The clause had been written decades ago after several border tragedies. Zarn Dominion had signed it willingly. Back on the human vessel, the Deathworlder commander watched Kareth's holographic image address the council. Did you strike the child? The speaker asked. Kareth's throat felt tight. All eyes were on her. Yes, she admitted. Why? The chamber waited. I believed it necessary to maintain authority, she said. The human ambassador responded gently. Authority without restraint breeds rebellion. Restraint breeds respect. The words echoed through the chamber. Outside the station, human ships held position like silent guardians. Zarn fleets gathered at a cautious distance, uncertain whether to attack or stand down. Neither side fired. The entire galaxy seemed to pause. In the medical center on New Dawn Colony, Aaron sat by a window watching the stars again. His father stood beside him. A news projection displayed the council session quietly. The boy did not fully understand politics. He only saw the alien officer who had hurt him now standing still before many leaders. Is she in trouble? He asked softly. The father considered his words carefully. She is facing the truth, he replied. Back in the council chamber, debate continued. Some members argued for sanctions against Zarn Dominion. Others feared escalation. The human ambassador raised his hand once more. Humanity does not seek war, he said. We seek acknowledgement and assurance. He looked directly at the Zarn representative. Will your Dominion recognize the violation and accept consequence under shared law? The question hung heavy in the air. Outside, fleets from multiple species began to arrive, drawn by tension. Yet still no weapons fired. The hunt had transformed into judgment, and the galaxy was watching. The Galactic Council chamber had never felt so heavy. Representatives from dozens of species filled the circular hall. Floating platforms glowed softly above polished metal floors. At the center, the holographic image of Officer Kareth stood, surrounded by light. Her armor had been removed. She wore a simple restraint uniform provided by the humans. She was not injured. She was not bruised. But she was no longer proud. Outside the massive station windows, human warships held position in perfect formation. Zarn Dominion vessels floated at a careful distance. No one moved too quickly. No one wanted to be the first to fire. Inside the chamber, the council speaker raised his staff for silence. This assembly recognizes a confirmed violation of civilian protection law, he announced. His voice echoed across the hall. The question before us is consequence. The Zarn representative stepped forward. His posture was rigid. Zarn Dominion does not deny the event, he said carefully. But this reaction has destabilized entire sectors. The human ambassador responded calmly. Destabilization began the moment a child was struck in public without restraint. Murmurs moved like wind across the chamber. Kara stood still, listening. For the first time, she felt small inside such a large hall. The speaker turned toward her image. Officer Kareth, do you accept responsibility for your action? Her throat felt dry. She could see the recording replaying in her mind. The boy falling. The father watching. The silence in the market. Yes, she said at last. The word felt heavy. A ripple of reaction passed through the audience. The human ambassador nodded slightly. Humanity seeks acknowledgement and assurance, he said again. We seek recognition that our children are not targets for discipline displays. The Zarn representative lowered his head briefly. The Dominion will issue formal apology, he stated. And compensation. The human ambassador's eyes remained steady. Apology without consequence becomes empty, he replied. The chamber fell quiet again. The speaker consulted with several senior counselors through private channel. The debate lasted long minutes. Some argued that execution would escalate tension. Others argued that without visible justice, the treaty would lose meaning. The galaxy watched through live transmission feeds. On New Dawn Colony, humans and aliens alike gathered around screens. Even Aaron sat beside his father, watching carefully, though he did not fully understand the scale of the moment. Back in the chamber, the speaker raised his staff once more. Under treaty law, a confirmed and admitted violation against a civilian minor may result in removal of rank, imprisonment, or capital judgment, depending on severity and context. He paused before continuing. Given the political consequences and cross-species tension now created, this council proposes final judgment to be delivered in formal session. The human ambassador stepped forward. Humanity requests presence during that session. The Zarn representative hesitated. Every eye in the hall was on him. Finally, he gave a slow nod. Granted. Hours later, the chamber reconvened under even tighter security. Zarn Dominion guards lined their section. Human delegates stood silent and still. Officer Kareth was transported physically this time under heavy escort. She walked into the chamber in real form, wrists bound by energy restraints. Gasps filled the air as many species saw her up close. She kept her head high, but fear now lived clearly in her eyes. The speaker began the final declaration. Officer Kareth of the Zarn Dominion, you stand in violation of interspecies civilian protection law. Your actions have caused diplomatic crisis and military destabilization. This council has reached decision. The hall felt frozen in time. You are stripped of rank, the speaker continued. You are dishonorably discharged from Dominion service. Kareth closed her eyes briefly. That alone was devastating in her culture. But the speaker was not finished. Furthermore, in order to preserve treaty authority and prevent future violations, capital sentence is authorized under Dominion consent. A wave of shock moved across the chamber. The Zarn representative remained rigid, face unreadable. He had agreed earlier under intense negotiation. The humans had not demanded execution publicly. They had demanded consequence. The council had chosen the maximum allowed under law to restore balance and prevent war. Kareth's breathing grew heavier. She looked toward the human ambassador. "Will this satisfy you?" she asked quietly. The ambassador's voice was calm but firm. "This is not satisfaction," he replied. "This is law." The execution was not chaotic. It was not cruel. It was swift and clinical under council protocol. A containment field formed around Kareth in the center of the chamber. Energy built silently. She did not scream. She did not beg. In her final moment, she seemed to understand something she had ignored before. Power without restraint carries cost. The light flashed once. Then it was over. Silence consumed the hall. Even species that rarely showed emotion felt the weight of what had just happened. The speaker lowered his staff slowly. "Let this judgment stand as reinforcement of shared law." Outside the station, human ships did not cheer. They did not fire weapons. They simply held position. After several minutes, one by one, they powered down active weapon systems. The human ambassador spoke one final time. "Humanity accepts this judgment. We will withdraw our forces." Across the chamber, relief moved quietly. The Zarn representative nodded once, slowly. He understood now that the alternative could have been far worse. In orbit, the human fleet began to turn away from the capital. Full drives charged with soft blue light. Within moments, ships disappeared into the fabric of space. Zarn vessels remained still, watching them vanish. On New Dawn Colony, Aaron looked up at the sky as the strange lights faded. "Is it finished?" he asked. His father placed a steady hand on his shoulder. "Yes," he said softly. "It is finished." But across the galaxy, the message was only beginning to spread. Humanity had not burned cities. They had not launched total war. They had shown precision, patience, and restraint. Yet they had also shown something else. Touch a human child, and the response would reach the highest halls of power. The council chamber slowly emptied. Representatives left with new understanding. Laws once ignored now carried visible weight. And in the silence that followed, one truth settled deeply into galactic memory. Deathworlders did not roar without reason. But when they acted, the entire galaxy felt it. The Galactic Council chamber remained quiet long after the execution. Many representatives did not leave immediately. They stood in small groups, speaking in low voices. What had happened was more than punishment for one officer. It was a shift in balance. For the first time in many cycles, a major dominion had accepted full consequence under shared law without open war. Outside the station windows, the last human ships disappeared into fold space. Their departure was calm, organized, and without celebration. That silence carried more meaning than victory cheers ever could. In Zarn Dominion Central, military commanders gathered in a secured hall. No one spoke at first. They reviewed damage reports. Defense grids disabled but reparable. Patrol fleets temporarily weakened. No civilian districts harmed. No cities bombed. The conclusion was clear. Humanity had demonstrated capability without destruction. A senior general finally broke the silence. "We misjudged them," he admitted. No one disagreed. Another commander added, "They did not come for conquest. They came for accountability." The word echoed in the room like a warning. On Earth, inside the high defense chamber, officials monitored galactic reactions. News networks across many systems replayed the council session. Analysts debated whether humanity had overreached or acted with discipline. The admiral stood before the main screen, watching responses scroll across the data feed. "Public opinion?" he asked. An intelligence officer replied, "Divided at first, but shifting toward respect." The admiral nodded slowly. "Respect is safer than fear," he said, "but both are better than dismissal." On New Dawn Colony, life began to feel normal again. Market stalls reopened fully. Alien traders who once laughed quietly now avoided direct conflict with humans. Conversations were more polite. Inspections were handled with visible caution. Aaron walked slowly beside his father through the same market square where the incident had happened. Some aliens glanced at him with curiosity, others with discomfort. The stone floor had been cleaned, but memory remained. The boy held a new toy ship in his hand, this one made of metal instead of wood. "Dad," he asked softly, "why did they listen this time?" His father looked down at him thoughtfully. "Because we made sure they understood," he answered. The boy seemed satisfied with that simple reply. In the Galactic Council capital, emergency meetings continued even after the formal session ended. Several smaller species requested clarification of treaty enforcement procedures. Some feared that humanity now held too much influence. Others quietly welcomed the demonstration of balance. The council speaker addressed a closed-door meeting of senior representatives. "This event proves our laws have weight," he said. "Without enforcement, treaties become decoration." A representative from a minor trade alliance raised a concern. What prevents humanity from enforcing other matters in the same way? The speaker answered carefully. Their restraint. That word carried importance. Humanity had shown power, but chosen limits. That difference changed perception. In Zarn territory, internal reforms began quietly. Training manuals were updated. Civilian interaction protocols were revised with clearer language regarding minors. Officers were reminded that authority must align with treaty law. Some younger Zarn soldiers questioned the strict changes. One instructor responded firmly, "We lost one officer. We could have lost a system." The lesson was clear. Far beyond political centers, in distant systems where piracy and corruption once thrived, whispers spread quickly. Smugglers who sometimes harassed human colonies reconsidered their choices. Mercenary groups updated risk calculations when contracts involved human civilians. Even species that rarely paid attention to council rulings now understood something new. Humanity did not react with noise. They reacted with precision. In a quiet park near his home, Aaron sat beside a small fountain, watching water reflect the afternoon light. His cheek had healed completely. Only a faint scar remained near his eye. His mother watched him from a bench, relief softening her features. The father stood nearby, speaking with a human envoy who had arrived to check on them. "The council has approved new protective oversight for mixed colonies," the envoy explained. "Joint patrols will now include civilian review officers." The father nodded. "Good," he said simply. He did not ask for praise. He did not seek recognition. His concern had always been simple. Protection. In orbit above Earth, fleets returned to normal defensive positions. Deathworlder strike teams stood down from high alert. Equipment was stored. Armor cleaned. Mission reports archived. The commander who had led the extraction submitted his final statement. Objective complete. Civilian safety reaffirmed. No unnecessary casualties. The High Defense Chamber reviewed the report in silence. Then the Admiral spoke one final order. "Stand down, Protocol Black Seed." The red indicator light that had blinked for days finally turned off. Across the galaxy, analysts and historians began recording the event under new titles. Some called it the Silent Enforcement. Others named it the Child Accord. Whatever name it would carry in future records, the meaning remained the same. Power balanced by restraint had prevented full war. Back on New Dawn Colony, the market fountain where the wooden toy ship had once fallen now seemed ordinary again. Aaron tossed a small coin into the water and made a quiet wish. His father watched him, then looked up at the sky. The stars were calm. No strange lights. No hidden fleets. Just distant suns burning quietly. "Is the galaxy safe now?" Aaron asked. His father considered carefully before answering. "Safer," he said, "because they remember." The lesson had not been written in destruction. It had been written in discipline. Humanity had not sought revenge for pride. They had acted for protection. And that difference echoed across star systems more strongly than any explosion. In distant council archives, the recording of the market incident and the final judgment were stored together under one file. It served as a reminder. The galaxy was vast and powerful, but even vast power must answer when it forgets the smallest among it. And from that cycle forward, whenever officers in any dominion approached a human colony inspection, they carried one quiet memory with them. The memory of a silent fleet in orbit. The memory of law enforced without chaos. And the understanding that Deathworlders protected their children not with rage alone, but with resolve that reached the highest halls of stars. The galaxy had changed, though few realized it immediately. In the weeks after the council judgment, News of the human enforcement spread quietly but steadily through star systems. Some species discussed it openly, others whispered in shadowed corners of trading hubs. Everyone who had eyes on Zarn Dominion noticed a shift. Inside Dominion Central, commanders worked harder to ensure no civilian incident could ever again escalate to a cross-species confrontation. Officer training manuals were revised again, this time emphasizing restraint and observation over force. Even junior soldiers knew the lesson. One child's safety could command the attention of entire fleets. Officer Kareth no longer served in the Dominion. Her name was removed from records. Some claimed she had survived only because of Council intervention. Others whispered she had fled quietly to a distant system, living under human protection for the remainder of her life. Regardless of the truth, her story became a cautionary tale in military academies throughout the sector. On New Dawn Colony, life slowly returned to normal. Humans and aliens moved through daily routines, though caution lingered in conversations and gestures. Market inspections were still conducted, but officers were polite, patient, and highly regulated. Aaron continued to recover from the incident, but the memory of Officer Kareth's strike lingered in small ways. His father taught him patience and awareness. "Watch carefully," he said, "and understand that some actions can ripple far beyond your eyes." Aaron nodded, still too young to fully grasp the scale, but old enough to sense the weight of responsibility. Far above the colony, human vessels remained in strategic positions, though full drives were powered down, engines silent. They had completed the mission but maintained readiness. It was clear they could respond again if necessary. The Deathworlder commander overseeing operations reported to Earth. Objective accomplished, laws enforced, civilian safety ensured. Minimal engagement. No escalation. The report was concise and factual, but every sentence carried weight. Humanity had shown the galaxy a new form of power. The Galactic Council, meanwhile, began reviewing existing treaties more carefully. The Child Protection Clause, once a minor paragraph in interspecies law, gained prominence. Representatives debated procedures for enforcing laws across multiple jurisdictions. Some feared that giving one species such visible authority could set precedent. Others argued it was overdue. During the debates, Earth maintained a quiet position. Diplomats answered questions calmly and factually. They did not boast. They did not threaten. Their silence carried more force than any weapon display. In the outer colonies, humans and allies began to take note. Civilian protection measures were strengthened. Training programs emphasized restraint, observation, and reporting violations rather than direct conflict. Stories of Aaron's incident circulated quietly among older children and young adults. The tale became both a warning and a legend. Harm a human child, and the response will reach across the stars. Back in orbit near Dominion Central, Zarn military engineers repaired disabled stations and ships. They spoke quietly among themselves, acknowledging the technical sophistication of the human strike team. "They could have destroyed us entirely," one officer admitted. "And they did not," another said. "All they did was enforce the law." That acknowledgement unsettled many more than it reassured them. The lesson was deeper than technology or force. It was strategy, patience, and precision. On New Dawn Colony, Aaron and his friends returned to their small games and simple lives. But he observed more carefully now. He watched how humans and aliens interacted. He noticed subtle gestures. He listened for tones in conversation. His father noticed and smiled quietly. "Awareness is a gift," he said. "Use it wisely." Beyond the colony, human strike vessels returned to Earth. Debriefing and review followed strict protocols. Lessons were recorded. Strategies analyzed. Every action documented for future reference. The Admiral emphasized one rule to all officers: precision without recklessness, enforcement without destruction. Across the galaxy, the ripple effects continued. Merchants and trade hubs updated contracts and insurance, accounting for the possibility that humanity could enforce law swiftly and silently. Diplomats adjusted negotiation strategies. Military leaders reconsidered border inspections and civilian interaction. Stories of the market incident, Officer Kareth's strike, and the silent human fleet became part of a growing network of cautionary knowledge. They circulated quietly in secure channels, whispers among stars, subtle reminders of restraint enforced with absolute clarity. On New Dawn Colony, Aaron's father took him to the market fountain once more. "Do you remember this place?" he asked. The boy nodded. "Yes, I fell here," he said softly. His father smiled faintly. "And what do we learn?" Aaron paused. "That even small people matter," he replied. His father nodded. "And that what we do can reach far beyond ourselves." Across the galaxy, systems began to recognize that humanity's actions had changed expectations. Civilian protection was no longer optional. Enforcement without chaos was now possible. Even the Zarn Dominion, proud and rigid, learned that oversight and law could carry weight stronger than fleets. In distant council archives, recordings of the incident, the human response, and the final judgment were preserved in multiple formats. Legal scholars, military strategists, and historians studied the files. Each playback reinforced one undeniable truth. Humanity enforced law with discipline and precision. They acted not from anger, not from pride, not from revenge, but from purpose. And the galaxy remembered. In quiet corners, older humans told the story to younger generations. They spoke of the small boy, the strike, the silent fleet, and the judgment that followed. The lesson was simple: protection, precision, patience. Across billions of miles, from colonies to capitals, from trading hubs to military outposts, that lesson was now part of the unwritten law of the stars. It was a warning, a reminder, and a promise all at once. Humanity had spoken silently. The galaxy had listened, and no one would forget. The final chapter of the incident did not begin with explosions or speeches. It began with reflection. Months had passed since the council judgment and the execution of Officer Kareth. The galaxy had returned to routine movements, trade routes, patrol schedules, and political debates. But nothing felt exactly the same. The balance between power and responsibility had shifted permanently. On Earth, leaders reviewed long-term impact reports from the operation. Analysts measured changes in interspecies behavior, treaty compliance rates, and military readiness adjustments across major dominions. The data showed something clear. After the enforcement action, violations against human civilians in trade colonies dropped sharply. Not because species suddenly became kind, but because they understood consequence. The Admiral stood in the high defense chamber, looking at a large holographic map of known systems. "Has there been retaliation attempts?" he asked calmly. An intelligence officer replied, "Minor cyber probes. Political complaints. No direct military response." The Admiral nodded. "Good. That means deterrence worked without triggering war." He paused before adding, "We must maintain restraint. Power is useless if it becomes reckless." Meanwhile, on New Dawn Colony, life had stabilized fully. The market square where the incident happened had been rebuilt slightly. The fountain was repaired. New stone replaced the damaged section where the child had fallen. Aaron stood there one afternoon, staring at the smooth surface as water flowed peacefully again. He remembered the fear from that day, but it no longer controlled him. It had transformed into understanding. His father approached and stood beside him. "Do you feel different?" the father asked gently. Aaron thought for a moment. "I feel stronger," he replied. "Not because I fought, but because people protected me." His father smiled softly. Protection is strongest when it is quiet. Across the stars, the Galactic Council implemented new enforcement procedures. A dedicated civilian protection oversight unit was formed. Its purpose was to monitor violations in real time and authorize rapid intervention before conflict expanded. Humanity agreed to participate but not dominate the unit. Other species joined as equal partners. The lesson from the incident had become shared responsibility. In Zarn Dominion territory, reforms continued. Military officers underwent mandatory ethics training focused on engagement with civilians. Commanders were required to document justification before applying physical force against noncombatants. Training simulations now included scenarios involving children and vulnerable populations to reinforce restraint. Some older officers resisted the changes. They believed authority had been weakened. Younger officers, however, saw something different. They saw protection of reputation, protection of alliance stability, protection of survival. Over time, acceptance grew. The Dominion understood that adapting was necessary to maintain position in a larger galactic structure. As months turned into a year, rumors about humanity's capabilities continued to circulate. Some rumors exaggerated the fleet size. Others claimed humans possessed secret weapons capable of wiping out entire systems instantly. Most of these stories were false or inflated, but they served one purpose: reinforcing respect. Humanity did not correct every rumor. They allowed mystery to protect stability. In deep space, the human strike units that had executed the operation remained active but rarely deployed. Their role shifted from enforcement to deterrence monitoring. They tracked emerging threats and intervened only when treaty violations reached critical risk levels. Their existence alone discouraged reckless behavior. On a diplomatic level, relationships between humans and the Zarn Dominion slowly improved. Formal meetings replaced tense confrontations. Trade negotiations resumed under stricter safety clauses. During one such meeting, a Zarn delegate approached the human ambassador privately. "Do your people regret what happened?" the delegate asked quietly. The ambassador responded without hesitation. "We regret that it became necessary." He paused. "But we do not regret protecting our child." The delegate nodded slowly. "We have learned." That simple acknowledgement marked progress. Accountability had transformed hostility into cautious cooperation. On New Dawn Colony, Aaron grew stronger physically and emotionally. He returned to school and training programs for young colonists. He learned basic self-defense, not because he expected attack, but because knowledge brought confidence. His teacher once asked the class about responsibility. Aaron raised his hand and spoke clearly. "Power should protect," he said. The teacher looked at him with surprise and pride. His words reflected lessons learned through hardship. Years later, the incident became part of official curriculum in interspecies law classes. It was studied as a turning point in treaty enforcement history. Scholars analyzed the sequence of events: the violation, the silence, the calculated response, the lawful judgment, and the controlled withdrawal. They concluded that humanity had avoided total war by choosing proportional force and legal legitimacy. In military academies across multiple species, officers studied the case as an example of strategic restraint combined with decisive action. Back on Earth, memorial archives preserve the recording of the council session and the final enforcement, not as celebration of execution, but as reminder of duty. The file description read, "Civil Protection Enforcement Case, example of lawful response to civil harm." The focus was never on revenge. It was on prevention. One evening, Aaron and his father stood again at the fountain. The boy tossed a small metal ship toy into the air and caught it. He smiled. "Dad, if someone hurts another child again, will the galaxy react like before?" His father looked at the stars shining above them. "If law is ignored, yes," he answered. "But our goal is to make sure it never happens again." Aaron understood that peace was not passive. It required vigilance. It required cooperation between species. It required accountability from leaders. Across the galaxy, systems operated with greater caution. Patrol officers reviewed procedures carefully before engaging civilians. Commanders remembered the visible consequence that followed one careless action. The memory of Officer Caratha's judgment remained powerful, not because it was brutal, but because it was lawful and undeniable. Humanity had proven that strength did not require domination. It required responsibility. And responsibility, when enforced properly, preserves stability better than fear ever could. In the vast silence of space, fleets traveled, stars burned, and civilizations evolved. But now, Every species understood one clear truth: protect the innocent, respect shared law, and remember that even a small child can trigger consequences that reshape an empire. The story of the alien officer and the human child became more than a warning. It became a turning point in galactic history, proof that justice, when applied with restraint and precision, could change the future without destroying it. And so the galaxy moved forward, carrying that lesson into every new encounter, every new negotiation, and every new generation.